I've got to talk more about Daniel Andrews and China. There's been plenty of fallout today. Of course, it's a lot more than just Chairman Dan and China. It's more than Andrews being a guest of Chinese President Xi Jinping and providing a propaganda coup for the Chinese dictator. Sure, by turning up, Andrews made it look as though a liberal democratic nation like Australia, a US ally like Australia, might actually support the Chinese communist dictatorship's deliberately intimidating display of military might and diplomatic heft. I mean, this was a hell of a show. Just have another look. Yeah, Andrews was effectively endorsing this display, which was actually intended to challenge and even threaten liberal democracies like ours. That's how idiotic it was for the former Victorian Premier to attend. Presumably, Andrews saw some benefit in all this for himself, because it certainly didn't help our national interest. It could only hurt our national interests and those of other democratic countries. But yes, it was even worse than all of that, of course, because the man some people like to call Dictator Dan, for the way he ruled with an iron fist during COVID, well, he stood with a lamentable collection of despots. There he was with the leaders of China, Russia, North Korea, and even Iran, a country that sponsors terrorism around the world, a country whose ambassador has just been expelled from our country because Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps was behind anti-Semitic terror attacks in Sydney and Melbourne. This is simply disgraceful behaviour from Andrews. It goes against everything our nation should stand for. But most of his Labor colleagues are unwilling to condemn him.
Look, I'm unlikely to ever be invited to such an event, let alone attend one, but that is ultimately a matter for him. He's attended as a private citizen, and I'm not here to speak for Dan Andrews.
What do you think of Dan Andrews joining a line of people greeting President Xi at this parade, which includes Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un?
Well,
do you like that Dan Andrews and Bob Carr are there?
He's not meeting them.
I don't doubt that there's that you've got a level of concern about what a private citizen has done here. My job, the Foreign Minister's job, the Defence Minister's job, the Prime Minister's job, the Trade Minister's job is to act consistent with Australia's national interest with a sense of purpose. And we've done that.
Pathetic, isn't it? Just call it out. Andrews' successor, Victorian Labor Premier Jacinta Allan, actually put out a statement saying it's good for Victoria that Daniel Andrews is held in such high regard by the people of China. Really? I doubt Andrews is held in high regard anyway. More likely he's regarded as one of those Western dupes that the Soviets dubbed useful idiots because they further the propaganda aims of communist regimes. Federal opposition leader Susan Lee took up the attack in Parliament.
With dictators, despots and war criminals like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. Will the Prime Minister show the necessary leadership to join with us and so many other Labor leaders in this condemnation? What message does it send when the Prime Minister of this country doesn't have the spine to condemn his former flatmate, Daniel Andrews, for posing in family photos with the Iranian president, a leader whose regime has actively orchestrated attacks on Australian soil?
And in keeping with his general weakness on national security and foreign affairs, the Prime Minister was tepid.
Well, they are delulu, Mr Speaker. I am not responsible for what every Australian citizen does. My position is very, very clear, which is we did not send any government representative because it wouldn't have been appropriate. None of my team would have sat in that position. As simple as that.
Still, at least one Labor leader has called it out.
Look, I think it's a little startling. Mr Andrews is his own private citizen now. He can speak for his own judgments. But like I said, I wouldn't have thought it's good judgment to be in the company of some of those people.
Yeah, I'll have more from the South Australian Premier in that exclusive interview in just a moment. But too many Labor politicians have failed this test. Are they prioritising the Labor Party above the national interest? Are they more interested in protecting the reputation of their Labor Party comrade than they are in standing up clearly and robustly for our national values? There are more angles to be followed up here, and it could become even more embarrassing for Andrews and Labor.
Is the Prime Minister aware that Daniel Andrews has not disclosed his engagement on the Foreign Influence Transparency Scheme Register? And will the Prime Minister immediately write to his close personal friend and former flatmate seeking his immediate compliance with the register?
Everyone should comply with the law. It's as simple as that.
Look, Daniel Andrews is a bloke who locked people in apartment blocks. He forced a curfew on citizens. He locked them down for months on end. He put a ring of steel around Melbourne. He closed borders, shut playgrounds and scolded people for looking at the sunset or getting on the beers. Hanging out with dictators in the oppressive communist dictatorship of China probably suits him. Perhaps he should stay in China.